This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. But we are underway. This is pretty impressive. We are sitting on the precipice, if I can use that word correctly, Kayla, of National Hunting and Fishing Day 2022 here in the great state of Nebraska and across the great states that are the United States of America. We got to figure out what you guys are going to be doing to celebrate that and why it's such a big day. I mean, for a lot of folks that are probably listening, and we appreciate you inviting us along on the ride to work, back home, out to the field, wherever you might be heading, or if you're just sitting at home, we appreciate, or at the office, I guess you can include that as well. We appreciate you letting us come and be part of your day. We do appreciate that. To make sure you subscribe so you can know now that we're back into the hunting season. Anytime a new episode is uploaded, you can get that notification, get that download so you can listen to us again. But, it's ready to go. But why is hunting and fishing such an important thing here in the great state of Nebraska?
That is a great question, because it is. We're celebrating it. And in fact, Hershey, you and I have been doing a lot of media things this week promoting hunting and fishing here in Nebraska, in the United States. And I could break it down in a couple different categories. Let me start by just doing that. I think we could break it down into the economic categories, the ecological, and the social impacts to the great state of Nebraska.
Did you catch that? Make sure you cover all of them.
I've thought about this. Let's start with the economic impact.
Let's go with that one.
That's an easy one, and that's the one we hang our hat on sometimes. So I think that we got to get beyond that. We owe it to our listeners to get beyond that one. But that's an important one, because nothing happens without funding, and hunting and fishing is part of the greatest, most successful wildlife conservation model of all time. Period. And the funding is a big part of that, right? And in Nebraska, if you look at the money, if you track the money, why wouldn't you celebrate an entity or an activity that brings in to the state's economy over $1.3 billion annually? I'm going to say it again, $1.3 billion annually. Over $1 billion, with a B, in sales. Over 10,000 jobs in Nebraska alone. Hershey, you're good at coming up with really good numbers, and you came up with some numbers that help drive that home nationally.
Now, and keep in mind, folks, when he says I'm good coming up with the numbers, I was on the website. I found the website for the National Hunting and Shooting Sports Foundation. I want to give them their due, who turned on the fact that every 30 minutes with hunting and fishing, the anglers and hunters of this nation bring in $100,000 to conservation and management. So while we're sitting here and you're listening to Hunt Nebraska, another $100,000 will be put into the coffers for wildlife management for the things that we love and hold dear. That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
And I know, populations go up and down in fishing and hunting and all that type of stuff, but our history has got some evidence of what happens when nobody's paying attention. I mean, you look back at some of those historic times and the land of plenty, and we didn't think it was going to run out. Yeah. We proved ourselves wrong.
Correct.
In that on a lot of fronts, and we found out what it was like to have nobody there at the wheel watching these things out. A lot of concern, but not a way to make it happen. And as you said, Jeff, it takes money. It takes some
billions.
Input on that front end to make things happen.
And not only that, it's that money we're talking about for the most part is really focused now. Now it has impacts across the board, but focused on game animals, deer, turkey, waterfowl, and so forth. The many, many more wildlife that are not game animals that haven't had a real solid funding structure for them. That's about to change, too, with the passage of the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. That's even more reason to celebrate if that passes the Senate here in the coming weeks. So that's even more support.
It's one of those things, you go back to the web that is our ecosystem, and you can't have such great impacts on just one species. It kind of ripples throughout.
Exactly.
So when you work with like Ducks Unlimited does here in Nebraska and across the nation, working on wetlands. I mean, just imagine the impact of all the different critters out there that benefit by that. Just because we're saying we're helping the ducks or the geese, boom. There's a lot more things out there that are positively impacted.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And that's a huge source of pride for all of us. Hunter, I know you used to work for the Wild Turkey Federation. I know organizations like Ducks Unlimited, Wild Turkey Federation, Pheasants Forever, they pride themselves in being a part of this, as they are a huge part of this overall funding structure as well, in helping so many wildlife species. So the funding is critical. The funding is probably one of the most critical things.
All right, and Hunter, make sure he hits on all those points that we talked on the financial side. But we do have to. You reminded me we haven't done introductions real quick. For those that are watching on YouTube, this is Kayla. She's running the board. She's helping produce this type of thing. That's Jeff, obviously, and then we've got Hunter, our brand new hunter education coordinator for the entire state of Nebraska. And I'm just Hershey here as well. And I will warn listeners that in a future episode we are going to be talking about us, just specifically us, so our listeners get to learn a little bit more about us and how people view us. Kayla and I have been kind of working on this for a little while.
I'd rather they not know how people view us. I can talk about myself all day, but I don't want to talk about how people view me.
You got a skewed view at times, though. I'll just, according to what we're getting back from input.
The feedback ain't good, huh?
The data doesn't always uphold what we've been told.
That's the fear.
All right, so we're back to, what was that? Financial, what was the second one? He said economic and
ecological
and social,
and then social.
The social.
Four. I thought there was four. We're
just three. Three.
We can make four out of it.
The social one is probably what excites me the most and excites us the most. You think about, at least me growing up, getting ready for my first gun deer season, and when you hit that age where you can go out and hunt with dad or grandpa or mom or whoever it is, just the time spent with relatives and friends, whatever you're hunting, the food you're eating.
It's time well spent.
Time well spent, exactly. I mean, that's what I think sits home with a lot of people, and that's what a lot of people think of when they think of hunting and fishing. They think of getting outside and enjoying everything Nebraska has to offer with their family, with their friends, and something that we at Game and Parks hope we can help emulate and provide those opportunities even further. So that's what I'm really celebrating, in addition to the economic impact and the ability for your state fish and wildlife agencies to manage and provide resources for that game to thrive, but also, the people that are out there enjoying it.
And that's so important because, the money part is, the money trail is huge, right? But, what hunters and anglers, pay all that funding into that, whether it's a 10% tax on firearms, ammunition, archery, arrows, fishing tackle, or if it's buying the permit. Would we do all that if it wasn't, at the end of the day, something more driving us to be there, to take part in it? And I think for many of us, it's that, Hunter hit it on the head, it's that social interaction, that heritage, that time spent with family and friends. It's really making memories, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. All of us here at this table have got some incredible memories over the years, and I always say some of the best are still yet to come, right? You've got to be optimistic. And so that's huge. And I think sometimes we take that for granted, but would we go hunting as much if we didn't have a duck blind with family and friends, or a pickup truck full of family and friends heading to the grouse woods, or all those hunts in between? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think it just speaks volumes when you finish a hunt one year with that you've done every year for however long you've been hunting, and then immediately you're looking
dreaming
forward
to
next year.
Yeah.
And it's just those traditions that carry on. They're going to happen. They might come together last minute, but they always do. And that's, to me, what we're celebrating here. And I was just looking. It looks like it's the 50th anniversary of celebrating National Hunting and Fishing Day. So, which is, I don't know if you said it, September 24th.
September 24th. This Saturday, if we can get this out in time. Make sure we got a deadline. But yeah, now the neat thing here is in Nebraska is we get to celebrate this not just on that Saturday, but also that Sunday, the following Monday, maybe the following weekend, and we get to do it for quite a while because of some of the natural resources and opportunities that we have here. So quite a bit. All right, so we got the social, we got the economic. Now, what was the third one you're claiming?
Oh, the ecological.
Ecological. All right.
Yeah,
and you kind of tied that in.
I mean, we already have. Everybody
you kind of did.
Everybody knows that. But, you think about it. You go back to 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and you look at Nebraska. We didn't have a lot of white-tailed deer roaming the state of Nebraska. In fact, I think a survey in 1905 suggested we could only find a handful of deer. in the great state of Nebraska at that time. I believe Kansas couldn't hardly find any at that time. So the Midwest, we weren't rich on deer. Waterfowl numbers had plummeted during that time. You look at today, and we have healthy big game populations, and there's goose poop on the shoe of every golfer. And a friend of mine emulated that, and it's right. There's golf, there's geese everywhere, and
that's our test right there.
There's the good old days of waterfowl, right? We've got a lot of birds moving through the area, and those are phenomenal success stories. And that's just a couple. There's a ton. The wild turkey. Look at that wild turkey and the impact that's had on Nebraska, traditions, families. And I can tell you right now, 40, 50 years ago, you weren't looking at a lot of wild turkey hunting in Nebraska. Now today, everybody, and I mean everybody who wants to hunt turkeys can. So, I mean, they're just some phenomenal success stories.
So, Kayla, what are you going to be doing to celebrate this National Day?
Well, I don't know. It's my first weekend off in a while, so I may not be able to get out hunting.
That's
Conservation takes work.
Yes.
And for those that are watching the video, you're probably wondering exactly what we have here in the middle of our table here in the video. For those that are listening, I'll read right off the top. It says Marshmallow Crispy Bar. Now, this happened to be in our lunches during the Missouri River Outdoor Expo, both the school day that most of us were there for, and then a couple of us were there throughout the weekend. Did you guys get more of these things? Because these folks are huge. If you can't see this on the screen, you're only listening to us. These things are huge. I mean, this is like 3 or 4 meals in itself. I mean, it says 4 ounces, but if you listen, I mean, there's some heft there.
They're pretty heavy.
There's some heft there.
There's no
You
question
can't
about
fit
it.
that thing in your mouth without breaking it first. At
Hershey
least I
did,
couldn't.
actually. I watched him eat it, and it was about 2 bites.
It was
impressive.
only on a dare.
It was impressive. I always got nervous for him, but it was impressive. He was able to snarf that thing down. But he shared it. He did cut it in half and share it with somebody else, which I didn't expect to see. I really didn't expect him to do that.
Well, I did because it was his.
Well, there's that.
Mr. Green Hat.
He's pretty good at sharing stuff when it's not his. So, yeah, those were something else. We had a great time at the expo. That was a lot of fun. I'll tell you, great coordination effort, by the way, but a good team.
And you've got to squeeze this in because not only is this your first weekend off in a while,
But
next weekend you're not off.
And the following weekends until the first weekend in November.
There you go. That's the way to
What?
pack
We
in
got you
the
working
schedule.
all weekends in October?
Yep.
Man.
We as
Julia.
in fact, becoming an outdoors woman and going back up to beautiful Ponca State Park here the first weekend of October, which I think a lot of us are looking forward to, getting a little bit of cool down in the weather. We are recording this today, folks, and I think it's triple digits.
It's
outside.
unheard
It
of.
is.
For
Yes.
September.
I thought we had outlawed that in the great state of Nebraska many, many years ago to hit triple digits this far into September.
Well, I saw a reason. October was on its way. Got a phone call from Summer. It was drunk. Had to go pick it up and bring it back.
How do you look?
Yeah.
All right, so you're fact checking that right there.
It's
Was
true.
Summer drunk?
When was the last time Summer drank? I
I'm not
Summer's
don't
sure.
think you're going to be able to fact check that.
Summer's not drinking tomorrow. There's a 40-degree temperature swing
That
between
is the
today
weather
and
of my
tomorrow.
people.
I gotta
We're
say,
northern
I
climate
don't
people.
think you want that in your Google search history. Was Summer drunk? But what about you guys? What are you doing? Kayla's still undecided.
I'm assisting Hunter at the Pressy
right.
silhouette shoot this week.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating in fashion with a little bit of plinking.
There might be some doves up there yet. I
I
mean,
got
there are now.
I got him.
There are now. I guarantee it. Now this cool cold front. I don't know if you want to truly call it that. That cool down is going to probably push a few a little south out of there before you guys make it up there. But that's pretty cool. The Pressy silhouette shirt. That's been going on for how many years?
You know, what do we put on that literature now?
45?
45, yeah, that's a long
45
time.
years.
A long time.
And you know the history better than me, but
Well,
listen,
I don't, but I can tell you right now, it's been a lot of
boy.
great people involved in this. And I was telling Hunter the other day that one of the things about Pressy, cool things is, Dick Turpin was one of the founding members of the project, and getting that going. And he used to go up there with his teepee and spend the night with all the guys and gals that came up to help set it up and then help put it on. And he'd camp out there all weekend in his teepee, and everybody'd sit around the campfires at night and have a good time. And and there was just a lot of camaraderie. So there's a lot of history there. Of course, our hunter ed coordinator throughout the history of the agency has always been one of the coordinating bodies for the Pressy Silhouette Shoot, along with the Halmont family up down in Broken Bow. Great folks, Matt and Dave and the family. Great family. And so it'll be fun to see everybody, but about 100 kids will be coming out with 22 rifles, looking to get bragging rights and trophies.
Should be a great weekend for it. That's that's awesome to see.
Good preparation for the hunting seasons to come.
Absolutely.
And get
absolutely.
a little bit of excitement and camaraderie, like you said,
absolutely.
and get ready for
Now, I have it on good word that we have a participant sitting in the Hunt Nebraska cabin today of the Pressy Silhouette. I don't know if we've ever had a graduate of that program before.
Well, I can only imagine who that might be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a mystery.
How'd you do?
Really good.
I can only imagine. Folks, you don't know this about Kayla, but she is a shooting sports guru. Should we call you that?
I'd accept that.
She would
Well
accept
accomplished.
that. Yeah, well accomplished. She was on the UNL rifle team. She's which speaks volumes right there. She's an accomplished shooter, accomplished hunter, and when were you at Pressy? I don't tell us when you were at Pressy, but I can tell you right now that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so on my high school career, I got started in 22s through silhouettes.
Okay.
So when I was in 4-H, they started a silhouette group, and they came in and said, "Hey, there's this cool thing out in Pressy. You should go." Okay. Sure.
I like to shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
I heard the word shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, man, where are we going?
Yep.
So was it Mike Streeter or Wendy, the hunter ed coordinator, when you were up there? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Probably Mike.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
Thinking so.
Fantastic. Well, we got a pro here. So, yeah, it's touched the lives of a lot of youth in Nebraska, and it's a big deal for those kids. They're practicing all summer long, leads up to the competition here at Pressy. And, when it comes to shooting sports, bragging rights and trophies aren't a bad thing. I mean, you always want to see where you match up with others, right? And so these are the proving grounds sometimes, these shooting sports activities.
Well, so I'm going to be the only one out in the woods. I'm probably going to be working on the tree stands this weekend one more time to get them ready. I know archery deer season's going on already here in the state of Nebraska, but I'm kind of that September time frame. I can sneak out and work on my trees and that type of stuff. And you can see it. I've actually got the poison ivy on my arms to prove that I've been busy out there. But it's time.
What a good way to celebrate National Hunting and Fishing Day, though. Look at all the different things we got going on, and it's all about hunting
Shooting
and
sports,
fishing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Getting outdoors, getting
cool.
poison ivy, finding some mosquitoes out there that need one more last bite before they get ready for winter. But
yeah, and I bet there will be a lot of deer hunters out this weekend getting stuff ready if they're not already out on their stands. I know
the cool front that we're having.
The diehards have been out. I know that, but I think a lot of folks are waiting for it to cool down just a little bit before they get out there.
Fact check me, but I do believe we have some youth waterfowl season going on here in some of our earlier splits, which will be exciting as well, because I'm sure this cool down that we're going to experience here in the next 24 48 hours is going to push some new birds down, because we're not the only ones that have been pretty warm here up on the upper plains, but any little bump can push some more teal down and things like that. And folks that have been out and knew where the water where the water was, catch that in editing.
Where the water were.
Where the water were. And where there was some good food, found some success during the teal season. And I can only imagine there's a good number of teal still up north of us.
I got to believe there are, and with a cool bump like we're going to get all week long here, I mean, there's some low nights up north will be in the 40s.
A little north breeze.
Oh, yeah. I imagine this weekend's going to bring in some teal. This will be a good time to get out with the kids, and without question.
So a lot of reasons to get out there, celebrate. Fishing is still going as well. We're not going to get into that a whole bunch, other than out west. It's probably gotten a little bit better because not only the white bass and wipers going strong, I'm sure there's a lot of other fish with that cool down and actually more of that decreasing photo period. As the days get shorter, are going to just kind of spawn that appetite just a little bit more, not to mention that some places water has dropped significantly, so there's just fewer places for those fish to be.
Yeah.
But get out there and enjoy it, because there's a lot of things happening down there, which kind of brings me to this other conversation here. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest, greatest Nebraska Land issue in here. You guys read this? This is where he said, yeah, cover
I've
to
looked
cover.
at the pictures.
No.
Jeff, no comment.
Maybe you can take this weekend.
I read that. I do.
Just
I
sit there, we go.
read the Nebraska
cover to
line.
cover. And proud of every issue we've ever put out, by golly.
So one that I'm
Deer
going
fangs. Okay.
to talk about here is rules of the marsh. But before we get that, there's an interesting article on deer fangs. Have you guys ever looked for deer fangs in your deer?
I do not.
The remnant of a time gone by and when deer needed extra fangs up there. That's pretty cool. I have found a couple more at check stations than anything else. When you're opening up a deer cheek to do some aging, it's like, oh, wait a second, what's that? There's an extra tooth on the top, which is pretty cool. But rules of the marsh. This is one kind of interesting thing put together by our very own Jeff Kurse, Nebraska Land editor, and a good friend of the podcast, about unwritten rules when it comes to hunting on public grounds. And this is, good article, well written, talks about some of the experiences that he's had while out hunting in public areas, and some of the things that he's learned has kind of helped him out as a hunter and helped those around, because when we're out there on public, it's open to everybody. Yeah. And that's part of the fun. We've got, 1.2 to 1.3 million acres of publicly accessible lands open to hunting here in the state of Nebraska. Yes, we're 97% privately owned. There's amazing opportunities with a good knock on the door if you've got some friends or family that'll let you onto their private land as well. But a lot of folks hit that public marsh or public woods or the public fields for upland birds and that type of things. And we've kind of all come up with our own little unwritten rules, right?
This is a good article. It really is, talking about, first come, first serve, or, whose bird is it and that kind of thing. What's your favorite unwritten rule in the article?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you guys
missing? What's
question about space. We'll start there. I agree. We'll get into the what's missing part. Space is an interesting one. How much space does a hunter need when they're out hunting? So let's pick a species. Kayla, what species should we go with?
Pintail.
Ducks.
Oh, waterfowl. Okay.
We're going waterfowl. All right. Rules of the marsh. You're going right there in the wetlands. So duck hunting, how much space does an individual need? Or, let's say you're going with their buddy. How much space do they have? You roll up on a public hunting area that's 100 acres in size, and you're going to go waterfowl hunt it.
It depends.
I think it depends. There's so many variables.
Yep, such as?
The first thing is safety. I mean, if you want to make sure you have a safe shot and that other hunting party has a safe shot, you think your
exactly right.
shotgun shell rounds, BBs can travel 300 to 600 yards. So if you're not within that safe range, you need to make sure you are. That's kind of the first thing that comes to mind, especially when I encounter other hunters.
That's an important one. Yeah. Very important. Safety is always at the top of the list. Yeah. Especially, heck, we're all involved with hunter education here. That's something that near and dear to our jobs and lives and endeavors outside of work. So, what else weighs into it?
The landscape of the marsh. So it's a kind of a puddly type area where you have open and then it kind of closes back up and opens some more. Or if it's all open type of landscape, how much you get a corner, do you get the puddle, that type of stuff? Good point. 100 acres doesn't mean it's all marsh usually, and therefore the water area where pintails are going to be and zero in on is not going to be evenly spread out through there. What are we missing, Jeff?
Well, you're missing a lot of things, but I think that's the key discussion is that there's a lot of variables. And so you have to take that into account when you head out in the field, and especially if you're hunting on public land with other hunters. I think the key is the golden rule. Set up, do everything as if you would like them to do that to you. If they're setting up 50 yards from you and you're thinking, I wouldn't set up within 50 yards of another hunter, then I wouldn't want them setting up within 50 yards of me. Don't set up within 50 yards of them. Whatever you think is acceptable for you, do that to other people. One of the things that I think over the years has served me well when public hunting is I've made some new best friends for the morning on a lot of public ground because let's face it, I don't know you from Adam, Hunter, but you and I show up to hunt the same thing. Let's hunt together. I don't know you very well. You don't know me very well, but let's talk about some safety rules and let's go hunt together and see how that works out, which is way better than us, hunting against each other and, half and half or what have you. And I can tell you some of my coolest hunts have been doing that and meeting up with some people, didn't know them, went over some safety rules, put ourselves in a position where we weren't really concerned about safety while hunting together, but we weren't hunting against each other in that ground, and it worked out phenomenally.
Communication is key. I completely agree with that. Now, oftentimes, I don't know that I join them as often because I oftentimes either I'm hunting by myself and want to be by myself, or I'm hunting with other people and I want to hunt with those folks. But communication is huge when it comes down to that. And not just distance, but like you said, with waterfowl, that's a great example. We know that waterfowl much prefer and sometimes have to land into the wind. So it's not just a matter of distance at times. It's a matter of, all right, were they here first? I think first come, first serve is what Curtis talks about in the article also is huge when it comes to public grounds and things of that nature. And then where can I fit in if there's already a group there? I'm not going to go even 75 yards downwind of them if I think that's where all the pintails in this instance are going to swing through because I'm going to be, winding them. That's kind of one of those unwritten rules when it comes to waterfowl, in my opinion, is that you got to be considerate of the others as well and not try to make it a competitive thing. I think that's one thing that we hunters have to remember. Hunting shouldn't be competitive. It should be something that we're all out there to do the same thing. Enjoy ourselves, be safe, have fun, maybe harvest some protein for the table.
Yeah,
we're all on the same team. It should be a team effort, and it's not a competitive. I gotta outdo that guy that beat me here to the marsh. I gotta do better than him. Okay, he's there. I'm gonna go downwind of him and mess up his hunt.
Yeah, and
I don't like that.
I think that first come, first serve, the unwritten rule, kind of dictates, at least for me, how I communicate. If I, pull up to a parking lot and there's another hunter at his car getting ready to go out, I'll ask him or her where they're going and then dictate where I go from that. Or if I'm there first and they pull up, I'll tell them where I plan on going and let them dictate where they go from based on that. So it's kind of and depending on what you're hunting and where you're hunting, that might change a little bit and how you communicate with them. But
just be respectful. Like I said, do what you would like somebody else to do to you, and I think that makes sense. But this is a good read, and folks, I highly recommend you reading it because it's a typical Jeff Curtis article, well written from the perspective of somebody with a lot of experience, and I thought it was there's some pretty good tidbits in there.
And as mentioned, when you start changing species and things like that, things change on the landscape as well. But before we leave waterfowl, I also know this isn't written down anywhere, but everyone should know the unwritten rules of flashlights and headlamp use and things like that to let people know where you are and communicate back and forth with that. I mean, we've all probably been in that situation where you're walking in on a public pond and, what does that flashing light down at the other end mean? Well, that's kind of telling me where they are so I can set up and not be in their way and they're not in my way type of thing. And others just kind of walk right towards that, like the moth to the flame at times. So get to know what that headlight means out there as well. Deer hunting, obviously distance probably a little bit more than it comes to waterfowl hunting.
It really can be. I've hunted within about 40 to 50 yards of other hunters and bow hunting, and it wasn't a problem given the terrain. And but with gun hunting, I don't want to be 40 to 50 yards next to anybody. I want to have more distance.
And that's one of those hunts, isn't it? If you were to stereotype, I'm going to do this. I'm not supposed to, but if you're going to stereotype different types of hunting, waterfowl probably a little bit more social.
Yeah.
Deer hunting, oftentimes a little bit less so, a little bit more. I'm just out here to sit down, relax, enjoy, wait things out. That type of stuff can be. I mean, they can both be, flipped to 180 degrees. I'm not saying they can't. At the same time, I kind of want, when I go deer hunting, I kind of want, especially with the bow, I kind of want to feel like I'm the only one out there. It's just me and the deer and the bright sunshine.
Yeah, agreed. And not only that, but, there's so many variables when it comes to deer hunting, right? Like, I don't mind looking across the fence in another place and seeing another hunter out there. But if I'm hunting and I know the deer are coming from upwind and there's somebody that walks in upwind and goes and sits over there. Now that really does kind of screw things up for me, you know. So I think there's a lot of other variables that come into play when it comes to deer hunting. But again, you know, do to others what you'd like to have done to you, and I think it'll probably work out pretty good.
Which reminds me of just kind of those funny stories. I'm sure we've had it happen before. If you guys ever rolled up on a public hunting area, you know, it's prime time for whatever species you're hunting. You get there thinking, boy, this might be a pretty busy spot. This might be really happening. You get there and nobody else shows up. And then you start thinking, uh-oh, is this place really?
Might not be any deer here.
Yeah.
What do they all know that I don't know?
I'm thinking, did somebody get dropped off here usually? But
yeah, but you do. You kind of go, maybe I should have gone with a busier spot.
That's where you start flipping, just like, yeah, it says right there that this is the day deer season opens right here. What's happening? I had that last year rifle hunting. I just kind of circled a spot, public area, and got out there early, and I was just waiting for the trucks to start showing up. And nothing showed up. I mean, it was 2 or 3 hours after sunrise. I was finally walking out, and a vehicle finally went down the road, and just like, oh, good. There's somebody else out here that's going to deer hunt. Nope, they were just driving home on this dirt road, and just like, really, nobody else was deer hunting out there.
But that's the way it is with a lot of our public areas. Absolutely can be. You know, especially outside of the major openers for pheasant and deer. You know, you can be out there a lot of times and not see a lot of traffic.
But
it's hit or miss.
And I will say one unwritten rule that precedes even, you know, getting there and finding somebody else there or someone that comes behind you or something along those lines. I think every hunter owes it to themselves, whether they're on private or public, but more so public, have a plan B. Be able, you know, if you drive up and there's 2 or 3 trucks already sitting in the parking lot in the spot you're wanting to go, you know, having something up your sleeve where, all right, I don't have to get in there. I don't have to figure this out because, like you said, maybe they're not in the parking lot anymore. You can't communicate to them. You don't know where they're headed. You don't know what they're up to. Certain times of year, they might not be hunting what you are. It might be something completely different. But have a plan B. Go find another spot because if there's 3 sitting in this parking lot, there's probably a parking lot that's almost empty, if not completely all to yourself.
Yep, agreed.
So I like having that. What other things would you say that we would add in there? Jeff, you kind of brought it up. What's missing in the article?
You know, boy, I have to reread it again to know what's missing. But, you know, there's all kinds of things that just come down to etiquette. And, you know, from where you park, where you walk in. I think one of the big ones is where you walk in, how you walk in. Yeah, and to me, that, especially on public land, you know, a lot of times as the crow flies, I can walk into a spot that I want to hunt, but it might go right through another hunter's area or closer to than they'd like to see. And that's kind of disconcerting when you're sitting there, all of a sudden somebody comes traipsing by with their gear, and it's kind of like, well, that just takes a little something out of it. So a lot of times I've changed my approach so that I might park on the other side of the property and walk in, not to space ourselves out, because I'm going to be hunting where I'm going to hunt, but I don't want to go right through their spot to get to my spot. That might be considered rude. So I think that's something we could probably all, you know, practice a little more.
You guys ever had that happen? It's prime time. It's ready to roll. You know, you're out there maybe sitting with your bow, and it's just that 15 minutes before sunrise. Just wonderful hawking hours, and you're just almost on edge of your tree stand or your chair of your blind, and someone comes traipsing through with their little flashlight and making noise and all that stuff.
At first, you think it's a deer,
loudest deer you ever heard,
and then you see the light, and you're, oh crap! And that's tough in the early hours like that when they probably can't see you yet either, and you've got to communicate in another way with a light or with your voice or whatever.
Back to the headlight, right?
Well, that's the other thing is, you know, if you do encounter somebody on public land, it's always been my practice to, you know, if you see somebody, make sure they know you're there, and then I just turn around and walk right back out the way I came in to not disturb their hunt as much as I can.
But it's kind of like going to a football game or a movie, really, right? You get there 5 minutes before the movie or the game starts, you sit down, and all of a sudden 5 minutes after the game starts, these people start coming to their seats, and everybody's got to get up and get around them there. You're missing out on the play. And, you know, hunting's kind of that same way. There is kind of a start time, right? And, you know, it's kind of a kickoff, if you will. You know, if I'm a waterfowler or I'm out bow hunting, you know, I think I want to be up there right at legal hours for at sunrise, so that's when I can start hunting right away. And like you said, that's kind of the witching hour, right? You don't want to have somebody traipsing through the woods right at sunrise when you're going, man, this is the time. Deer are moving, and someone comes walking through. I want them to come walking through in the dark, half hour before sunrise, so that we can all get settled before the deer start moving. Because I think your chances are really good. But if people are moving around during the witching hour, I don't think that's good at all. So be there for kickoff. That's what should have been in there. Be there for kickoff.
You go.
Be there long before kickoff.
I completely agree with you. That's the one that, and I've done it to other people accidentally.
We all have. Yeah. That's the problem.
And I think that it's one of those things that you just have to decide, all right, I didn't get here on time. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer, get past that, and go. Now, we all have stories as well, I'm sure, is somebody coming through like that, and then all of a sudden, not even 10 minutes later, here comes, wow, there's still deer in there.
Yeah.
They figure out ways around and all that stuff. But it goes back, again, also to that, I want to feel like I'm the only person out here, and it weighs on us to know that there's somebody else out there that's been crunching around, scaring all the critters off.
I think that trumps the idea that, maybe they'll push something to me. But on those lucky occasions, especially on public, people moving around could work in your favor. But
it does, absolutely.
Be respectful. And,
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's an excellent one. Because hey, we all get excited about it. We've been dreaming about it the entire off season, and then that certain magic periods in there, we want to be there at that time. And if you've taken the time and effort to get up early, walk out to your stand as well as drive to the location, which might be quite a ways away, you want others to kind of have that same idea. So that's a good one. I like that. Hunter, you got any that that are missing that you'd add?
I guess if for any non-hunters listening out there, they very well could encounter a hunter on public land, and I think the best thing to do is make your presence known and turn around and walk in the other direction. I think they have equal access to these public lands we're all utilizing for outdoor recreation. I think it's a good note to them to wear blaze orange or hunter orange if you're worried, just to notify others that you're there. And I think it's always good to know what to do in that situation because a lot of folks don't. So,
excellent idea. Excellent. Kayla, what are we missing?
I think one species we haven't hit on is pheasants.
Oh.
Now it's easy
that changes
to.
It.
Yep.
It's a whole different ballgame.
That changes it.
Yep. It's easy to know where everybody is. You're all in bright orange. You are generally on a flat landscape, at least on eastern Nebraska side. But I think also being aware of where they are headed and where you're headed, and maybe their strategy on how they're working the field versus how you're going to be working the field.
Well, first off, snow or no snow? I mean, you got to have some.
Wow.
I got to know. I mean, we got to have some parameters. So we can't just go pheasant hunting. We got to figure out some details. But agreed.
I think that makes it complicated. One thing I have not figured out, maybe you guys have, is how to communicate with somebody else that's bird hunting a chunk of property the same time you are or your group is. Because it's one of those things that we talk about space. Well, now we're talking about waterfowl hunting. We're mostly over decoys, probably, at least in the four of us, we're waiting for them to come to us. Deer, very similar. I think our strategies are pretty much getting a tree stand or in a ground blind, and whether it's with a muzzleloader, rifle, archery equipment, whatever, we're waiting for those deer to come to us. A couple of us grew up around deer drives, but not everybody. Pheasant hunting, though, I don't know how many people sit and wait for the pheasants to come to them, and I can't believe they're all that successful. So you're moving across that ground. Some moving a lot quicker than they should be. Some going a lot slower than they should be. But you're eating up acres of ground rather than just kind of patrolling or watching this one area. You're moving around, and I've been there. I've been there where I've either been the first part of the group there or the second group there, and you try to guess what they're going to do. So all right, well, they're not hunting this side, so we're going to go this way, and all of a sudden you come over a hill and there they are. They didn't do what you thought. Or you're trying to tell them, all right, you keep coming and we'll turn this way. And they take it as, oh, they want us to turn that way. And they start like, oh, son of a gun. You're trying to outguess them. So we got to work on our communication skills. I don't know if we need to learn better hand signals like you have on an aircraft carrier, get some flags or what have you. What do they call that? There's a word for that. Not metaphor. But
synonym?
Hemaphor? We'll figure it out. But it's one of those things that is a little bit trickier. So what do you do? Golden rule.
It's pretty obvious. Well, and again, unlike deer hunting where 20 acres can be plenty, pheasant hunting, you need a bigger buffer. And so it's just giving people a bigger buffer. I think it comes with a little experience. Read the landscape. You see where they're hunting, and you can see that they're going to be moving down or toward a draw or some natural point. Okay, let's not move into that direction. Even though we might be able to get to that draw before they are, you can see their hunt's going to take them over, and they're going to want to hit that draw. So take that into account and move on to a different spot, or keep your buffer away from that so they have the hunt that they're heading toward. Because we can all look at that and say, oh, they're right there, so I'm going to hunt here, and whoever gets to the draw first wins. Well, that's, again, first come, first serve. They're already heading that way. That's not something I want somebody to do to me. So,
I think the tricky thing comes into it is if you're in a huge area. Say you're in like a 4,000 acre public spot where you can hunt. There's a lot of directions to go, and you know that it can fit more than one group, and so how you do that, obviously, I think that a lot of times it's not so much that other groups are trying to get to that best part of the habitat before the other group does. Now, that can happen in some rare cases, but I think it's just accidentally they end up where the other group thought was better, and you thought that other spot was better, and you wander through it or what have you. They're not being able to communicate at a couple hundred yards makes it difficult, I think.
Yeah.
Semaphore. Semaphore is the art of using flags to signal. That's the signaling system. Semaphore. I was so close with metaphor.
Figured out. I was going to lose.
So we need to, as pheasant hunters and hunter ed, we need to start teaching semaphore on how to. I'm going west, you go east, and that type of stuff. We'll stay out of the draw. I don't know how you do that with flags, but
is this going to vary state by state? So
nope, it's got to be international. IHGA standards.
It might be easier just to have big poster boards and markers and hold up a big sign saying, go this way.
Can you see me?
You're doing all right. You got this. Keep going north.
Might accidentally land a plane, Hershey.
I don't know. You'll probably get them to change directions if you do that, though. They'll probably run away from you. So either way, that might not be a bad idea. Hey, look at that guy over there. We're going to go hunt this way quickly.
Oh, boy. That's something.
You and your semaphore. Can't you see he's just semaphoring up there? That's weird.
See, my Navy guys listening will understand what's happening. But anyway, I will say that there are times where I prefer, if I'm going to hunt public, for there to be other people out and about on the property. There are times where it helps me, and I know it does. I think oftentimes dove's one that I think that having other people spread throughout a public hunting area can help kind of move some birds around and all that. I've been the beneficiary of not being on the X of where the doves want to be, but knowing where those doves will sometimes go after they've been shot at a few times when they're trying to get to the X. I think teal and waterfowl are another one that, especially teal, they just appear and disappear so fast at times that I think that sometimes if you're on a big lake system or wetland system, it's not bad having all the or more of the likely spots covered to keep them up and moving. Now that probably moves them out of the area faster. But the same token, I feel like, all right, I might not be, again, on the best spot, but I'm in an okay spot out there. Yeah. Deer hunting, there's definitely times in some thick cover, I'm okay with having a few more of the escape routes covered and people bumping around. And one of the things we preach in our Learn to Hunt workshops is get there early and stay as late as you can. Yeah. Because people coming in, moving around, having to go get donuts, going out for lunch, checking the score of the football game back in the parking lot, doing all sorts of stuff, are going to bump some birds around. I think you see it, and back to doves and teal, especially early in the season. I think you see when people are starting to head back to the truck, it's like all of a sudden there's all these birds flying around. It's like, oh, that group's moving out. So they're kicking them up.
I've always said some of the best times to bow hunt for deer, Husker Game Day, Husker Game Saturday, because you're going to get movement, guaranteed.
Traditionally you're
going to get movement in the morning before the game starts, but also opening a pheasant season. To me, has been one of the best times to be out in the deer woods in a tree stand because pheasant hunters are pushing deer around, and they're just by the nature of pheasant hunting, you're going to move some deer around. And how many times I've been out hunting. One of the places I hunt with my brother-in-law, and we've almost been bummed when the landowner, the neighbor who has a big farm to the east, if they're not hunting, you're kind of bummed because it's like when they're out there moving around, there's deer coming onto our place all the time because it just pushes deer around, and I'm sure we do some of the same. So don't always look at movement from other hunters as a negative, because more often than not, it can be a positive. It really can.
I know a lot of duck hunters that enjoyed the crowds and excitement and the popularity of opening day of pheasant, just like you said, because now there's farm ponds getting bumped. That you haven't seen a human other than riding in a tractor or a combine for some time. Now all of a sudden, they dogs around there, splash around, scaring them off, and those ducks and geese are up there looking for a safe haven. Oh, there's decoys down there, and they swoop right in. I agree. I think it's also one of those things using kind of that. All right, everyone's going to be out pheasant hunting. I'm going to be deer hunting, for example, or everybody's out doing this. I'm going to go do that instead.
Yep, agreed.
Which is kind of fun, I think. All right, I think that covers that article pretty well. I do want to talk a little bit, though, as we're getting into this, because I know a lot of folks are going to be new to hunting, and those folks are often the ones that probably rely on the public land and the public access atlas that we put out and have online on our website, outdoornebraska.org right now. But we've got more than just, hey, look at this book and hunt. We've got some cool Learn to Hunt workshops coming up. Is that right, Hunter?
Yeah, and they're going to be on the schedule here for October and November, doing a little bit of virtual workshops for deer and pheasant as we get into October here, and also some more hands-on sight-in days, tree stand skill workshops here at the Outdoor Education Center in Lincoln here. So those should be on our website very soon here, if not by the time you're listening to it. So Let's Go Hunting, outdoornebraska.org/Let's Go Hunting, and you can find everything you need to know on those.
A little bit more in depth. You're also teaming up with Onyx to talk about e-scouting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I missed that one entirely. We're doing
I'm intrigued by it.
Hershey and I, along with Onyx as a partner, are going to be doing an e-scouting for deer workshop here on October 4th. So coming up here pretty quick, and you can check that out. You'll find information on that on our Hunt Nebraska podcast, but talk about using virtual mapping, Onyx, and our own online public access atlas to find public lands to hunt, and how to use it effectively to scout for deer, white-tailed deer, and mule deer. Which
is just really kind of cool, thinking about that technology that we didn't have at our disposal 20 years ago.
Yep.
To do these things. Cool. Now, I just wish they'd put a layer on what areas have poison ivy to avoid and all that type of stuff, because, you guys allergic to poison ivy?
Very.
Yep.
Very.
Yep. Kayla, no?
I'm not. Nope.
Oh, man.
Urshoil and I are not friends. Let's just put it that way. But we've met many times.
I was going to say that might be a one-way relationship.
Yeah. They might have a filter soon. Might have a filter soon. But no, that's online tools like that can be so beneficial to helping you get started in the right direction.
Agreed.
And Jeff's twiddling his fingers, so that must mean he's got a call to take or something like those lines. But we do have to wrap this up. I appreciate you guys listening to us. Make sure you subscribe or give us a thumbs up. Make some comments below so we can get some more play. Also, don't forget that the Hunt Nebraska Facebook page, subscribe to that so you got the inside track to all things coming up hunting. And until next time, Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.